Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Today's video we're repotting an orchid, but I'll be doing it in a way that I've never done before, so it'll be a new idea. It stems from a few other people's comments on my videos and watching a few other people's videos as well, and it's a combination of these things coming together to give me a new idea that may be beneficial. These new ideas, if you don't try them, you never know. They might be a miserable failure. But in this particular case, it'll either be the same as normal or better. It can't be worse. I've made my mind up, right? So just a quick comment on the Sunday chat video and the idea of you good people voting for sets of orchids to go into a video to review, spotlight, whatever you want to call it, and selecting categories for a chat about the category, not any specific orchids. Thanks a lot for all your comments. Cheers for that. I've spent quite a few hours so far getting this ready, and it's not ready yet. The problem I've got is to actually count the orchids in question. I've got to open up and look at every comment that you people have done. I've then got to transfer the information that you've put in the comment somewhere. Well, the obvious place when you're collecting stuff together like that is a spreadsheet. All sounds good so far, doesn't it? Except for one thing. The spreadsheet's got to contain the names of all the orchids in question, and I'm still typing them in. It will take a while. I will probably do a bit more. I'm doing it in bits. It's a tedious task. It's got to be done, but if I sit down and try and do it in one go, I shall end up getting very ratty with it. So I'm doing it in bits. I did some yesterday. I've done some this morning. I'm up to the end of the dendrobiums. So as far as my list is concerned, that's probably about half the orchids done. You know, the majority being above that point. So we've still got some to go, obviously. But yeah, so once I've got the names there, then I can just have a look at each comment in turn. And I was going to put a tick in a box. I'll just put a number in. Yeah, so as soon as I come across somebody who's selected an orchid, I'll type number 1. Well, when I come across somebody else who's selected it, I'll just overtype it with 2. Ticking and it's tedious. Let's just put the number in, and then at the end I will have all the numbers. Being a spreadsheet, I can sort it on those numbers if I choose to, but that's for me to worry about. It's coming along. Hopefully the first video will be during this week sometime. But today we're doing a repot, trying something new. Well, let's get on with it then. Talking about it's not going to get it done, is it? So I'll get my stuff out. We're back in the kitchen, so it's kitchen time. So you immediately know it's not a giant orchid, it must be a relatively small one. And I am only going to do the one. As it's a new idea, there'll be some talking to do about it. So let's get going. Okay, so what am I up to then? Well, this is a Mazda Valia I got last year, and it is Mazda Valia Prince Charming, and it's not growing as well as it should be, but it has put up some new growths. I'm not happy with the look of the moss. It's got algae in it, and I'm not sure what sort of moss it is, and as a consequence I'm repotting it. It has got a new growth just starting. It has got some roots, and looking at the roots, they are, for Mazda Valias, medium size roots, because Mazda Valias can have quite fine roots, but they can also have rather thick chunky roots. And according to Lynn, who I listen to because she grows an awful lot of Mazda Valias and has been doing it a lot longer than me and does very well at it, you adjust your media to suit the root type. Yeah, so big chunky roots don't go in compact media like direct sphagnum moss or anything like that. They tend to want some gaps around their roots, whereas the fine rooted ones can go straight into sphagnum if that's what you use. So what am I doing different then? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is get me coffee out of the way. We have a jug. What's in the jug? Well, water, yes, and seaweed extract. Yeah? On the grounds that many have said seaweed extract when repotting actually does the plants the world of good. It helps them settle down following a repot and the disturbance that it causes. So first of all, we'll get this out. That's come out quite nicely. That's good. The other reason I'm not happy with this moss is it is going mouldy on the surface. Now, the next thing that I'm doing different is we're avoiding the roots. So I'm just teasing off this moss on the top here, making sure I don't touch any roots. As soon as I get near any roots, I stop. The reason being, you've got oils and things on your skin, and in some cases that might not do the roots any good. Now all I really want to do is see what I've got here, so I'm teasing. Now this looks like this was potted on, which given where it came from is highly likely. And the problem you get is when something's planted in moss and it's been grown on from a seedling in moss, that moss is old and tired, and if you pot it on, any roots that are in that old and tired moss are just going to die. And I think that's what's happened. In the centre of the plant, the roots are dead. So far, all we've done is pull some moss off. I haven't touched any roots yet, carefully avoiding them. I will have to go and get my scissors though, because obviously we've got some dead roots to cut off. So what's the jug of water for? Well, that. Two reasons. One, sorry, something just whizzed past the window. The sparrowhawk has visited a couple of times recently. A couple of flyovers, and once it actually landed on the shed. Oh, and I was so annoyed. I was sitting in my chair, my computer chair, and there was something in the way. I'd been moving some plants around, and I know it landed on the shed. I saw the landing gear come down, so I know it was there, and my back was hurting so much I couldn't lean across the table and have a look. So I had to do without. Anyway, back to this. Another reason for giving it a soak. When it's in the water, if you give it a shake, a lot of the old media comes off. And I still haven't touched the roots. See, if you look at the jug now, look at all the media that's come off. So all we've really got to do now is get my scissors, which I forgot of course. So I will go and get those while that has a bit of a soak and I have a bit more of my coffee. And yeah, that moss has gone, and it was probably turned by the plug that was left on the plant. It's like anything else. If you've got some good stuff, doesn't matter what it is, some good stuff and some bad stuff, you put them next to each other, you're going to spoil the good stuff, aren't you? And it works like that with media. So this looks like it was reasonable moss, the moss it was potted on into, but yeah, see, that's got that nasty smell as well. So I think the reason this wasn't growing as well as it should do is the moss has gone off, so the roots aren't happy. It has got a reasonable root system for the size of the plant, but given the length of time I've had that plant, it should be bigger than that. It should have put up more new growth than the one or two that it has done. But at least it's growing, and it has a new growth at the base, which will produce hopefully roots that will get down into some media that's more suitable. The other thing is that pot is a bit big. My worry is, what is the next size down? And it could end up being tiny and too small. Yeah? Anyway, I will leave that to soak. finish my coffee, go and sort a pot out and get some media in and have a general tidy up. I'll be back. Okay, let's get to work. Now, we've got some trimming to do on that, and in the meantime I'm just going to tip some of that water in there, preferably without all the old moss. And I'm going to put some new moss to soak in there. It's the only time you'll ever see me using wet media is when I use some moss in with the mix. Now I'm not going to need a lot because I have actually found a much small, well, I won't say a much smaller pot, but a pot that is the next size down. So our moss is now soaking in water that's got some seaweed extract in. So it's not just moss anymore. It's something a bit more than moss. Yes, so I've managed to find a pot that is the next size down, which is far more suitable for the size of that plant. So that's that. That's our moss in to soak. And before I get any new media out, I'm just going to look at trimming. And it's this area here. This is where the dead roots are here. And if you have a look, that's the oldest part of the plant there. So in theory we might even be able to pull the older part of the plant off. Well, we'll certainly be able to cut it off. And then there we go. Most of the dead roots have come off in one go. I can still see a few more. This is the trouble, because I'm right-handed, what you need to see, my hand's in the way. But it's just basically a matter of selecting dead roots and snipping them at the base. And there's not too many to worry about. There we go, the roots that are left are okay. Just get the last bits of moss off, the old moss, if I can. There's our new growth. Yeah, so we do have a new growth starting. Oh, a few more dead roots there. It does pay you to turn your plant when you're tidying up all miserable roots and dead roots and soggy roots, because some will hide behind good roots. Until you turn the plant round you don't see them. Right, so that's, I've had Mazda Valias with worse root systems than that have picked up okay, and in my new environment Mazda Valias are growing better anyway. You may have seen this in the grow room. This is a bag that I keep on the floor that I put all of my vegetative rubbish in, old media, everything goes in there, and when it's full it goes in the dustbin, which it shouldn't do, but given what next door throw in the dustbin, my little misdemeanors are not going to, I'll get that word out in a minute, misdemeanors, I always keep my trusty Hoover around to pick up stuff. Right, so this is a mix that we put in this bag last time we did some repotting because it was left over, and it is small bark, perlite and some sphagnum moss. So it's almost what I want, but what it isn't is anywhere near heavy enough on the moss. Why? Because that was in pure moss. If you take something out of pure moss and put it in bark, it will struggle for a while because it's a dramatic change in media. So if you're going to take something out of moss, to get it into bark, it does pay to do it in stages. And the stages I'm going to use are the next media that it goes into. This one will still have an awful lot of moss in it. So in theory the roots should feel at home. I forgot to say what this is. Mazda Valia Prince Charming. This came from, where did it come from? Came from Spicesotic. Can't remember where, probably at Malvern last year. But as I said, that moss was quite smelly, so it was going off, so it was not conducive to good root growth. Now some of these roots that I can see now, I'm just looking at the plant while I'm fiddling with this moss, I've got lovely growing tips on, so there is effectively a partial active root system. It's not a brilliant root system by any means, and I think given how long I've had the plant, it would be had I repotted it sooner. Sometimes delaying a repot is not the best idea. Sometimes you go on trust and it doesn't work. You know, I got this from a reputable dealer, and at some point somebody had lifted that out and not got rid of the plug that it was in, the seedling plug, which was old, you know, acidic moss, and repotted it in some new moss, and some new roots had grown into that new media, but the old media was just turning it sour, so the roots couldn't get going properly. Yeah, I think that's about right. A bit heavy on the moss this time. Now I'm just going to lift the moss off and see if I can get some that hasn't got much moss in, like that, and that'll go in the bottom of the pot. So it's like crocking. Sort of like that. And then we'll put some with moss. Now we've got to go careful. We are still maintaining the fact that we're not touching the roots. Well, I'll give you an orchid that this methodology I would say is not advisable but essential, and that's Zygopetalums. You mess about with the roots. Oh look, there's a second new growth here I've just spotted. There. Can you see it? Hang on, I can't see what I'm doing here. Just there's one, and just there's one. So there's two new growths, and in theory those new growths will produce some more new roots. So hopefully this plant's going to pick up. So when you've got roots that you're confident are not extremely brittle, back to zygos again, that are, you can help them into the pot by twisting the pot as you insert the plant, and it'll just turn the ends of the roots into the pot, and in addition to that it turns them away from the very edge of the pot. Why would I want to do that? Well, if they're right on the edge of the pot, strictly speaking, they're not in the media, are they? Because half of the root, the outside edge, is up against the pot. Now, tapping the pot with wet moss doesn't work as well as if the media was dry, but you can use your eyes. Now, I'm not going to press this down by any means. I'm just going to gently secure it. Now, what a lot of people do is top up their moss mix media with bark, and that stops the algae forming on the moss, because I'm going to put this inside a dark pot, which will stop the algae around the outside of the pot, but it won't stop it on the top of the pot. So I'm just teasing the bark out from the top of the plant. Mazda Valias do not want to be buried. You need the base of the plant showing, and if that means doing some adjustments, then so be it. I'm just going to go down a little bit harder down the outside. I still haven't touched the roots. Right. Still a tiny bit deep. We will tease away. Just tease away round the base with your finger so that you can see it. You need to be able to see the base of the plant and not bury it. Especially when you've got a moss base mix that certainly when it's watered is going to stay quite wet for a while. Right, that will do. The only other thing I want to do now is I want to put a stake in there and grab hold of a couple of the firm leaves to stop it. You can see it's moving. Well, that's not ideal. That means the roots are not going to be able to settle properly. So I will actually put a stake in. Actually, I'll go and get one and we'll do it on camera. We'll do the whole job, hadn't we? I'll be back again. Right, I've brought a couple in case one doesn't do it. I've got a pot full of clips of assorted shapes and sizes and styles. People will probably say, where do you get those? In the main, they came off of plants that I bought. So I don't know where they came from really, you know. Some of them would have come from foreign climes. But what I want to do now is find something that's going to hold the plant firm. One leaf is often good enough and we'll use that one. As I say, we may need two. So just put the stake in and then we can use a grabby type of clip to just catch that leaf. Now that leaf can't move. And if I come round the other side and do it to one of the others, that one will do, then we've got it. Actually that big one would be better, but it's not in a convenient place. So we'll use that one. And again, I've got a small grabby one. Yeah. We'll just grab the base of the leaf round the stake. Well, that's better than it was. It's still a bit wobbly, but in the main that's because this grabby clip has slipped. It needs pulling up again. That's better. That's better. Right, put the tag back in. There we go. And as I said, that's a sort of new idea. Not touching the roots at all and giving the plant a soak, and followed by a good shake in some water that's got the seaweed extract in it, so that the plant gets to absorb some of that at the point it's being repotted, which is the point where it's supposed to do quite a bit of good. That will be impossible to tell. I'm not going to be able to tell whether that soak means that this plant settled down in its pot better than it would have done if I hadn't done it. There is no sensible way to find that out. But I always say with the seaweed extract, it can do no harm. So it either does nothing or some good. It's not going to do any harm, unless you really overdose it, of course. It should always be in low volume. Right, so that's a Mazda Valia done, and get it out of its horrible media. Now that'll have a water now, and why waste water? If I get the residual old stuff off the top of this water, because it's just sitting on the top, there's not enough to block the sink, so that can go straight down the sink. It's only a small amount. Be silly to put old media back in just for the sake of watering it, and then I can just pour that water over the pot and the plant is watered, ready to go back in the grow room. And the water it got has got seaweed extract in it. So just let that drain back inside its black pot, fits in there nicely. Ideally, with this business of putting pots in the black pot to stop the algae forming, they shouldn't fit too tight. They should still have a gap round there, because it does pay. I mean, that's an air cone pot. If it was really tight in its black pot, there wouldn't be any airflow, would there? So it's better if it fits a little loose. So there we go. Some new ideas. Unfortunately, they are ideas that I know not whether they work or not, but I'm quite happy to give these things a try. If the new growths on this plant take off and form some roots, I would say it's for one of two reasons or both. It's either because that media was stopping the growth and stalling the plant, yeah, because it was not a conducive media for it to be growing in, and the fact that that's now been replaced has got it going again, or the seaweed extract has had an effect on the plant and not stressed it or de-stressed it and got it going a bit quicker, or it could be both. No way of telling. Anyway, a repot, bit of kitchen time, and I will see you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Oh, this idea, this principle, it's not just for Mazda Valias. It can be for many types of orchids. And the idea of not handling the roots and getting as much media off without touching the roots, followed by a good shake in a jug of water or some such thing to get the worst of it off, then trim your old roots off, that can apply to many types of orchids. It just happens to be a Mazda Valia that I needed to do today. So there we go. I'll see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.